Down here off of Cedar Bayou on the Matagorda shoreline. That's all this whole back area here, all the way up into Bray Cove, where the Texas Parks and Wildlife little building is there off of that point. We've been working these back areas here pretty well. If you have noticed, we've had a little break in our weather from the heat, so it has been very welcome. You know, water temps have dropped somewhere between 6 and 8 degrees, which is significant. So it's changed the fishing pattern up just a little bit. Even though we're still in a summertime pattern, it's not changing up drastically like that. But it did make a little bit of difference in your morning wades. Water temps were typically just a little bit cooler. We had a little bit more wind this past week. Of course, we had duck and dodge and some rain showers here and there, but it was all welcome. It improved the fishing conditions drastically, so to say the least. So, you know, we've been working these areas here, fishing off these edges, fishing over the grass. And the other thing too is there's been a lot of water pushed back in our system here. So there's been lots of water pushed up into some of these back lakes. We've jumped up into those, like Little Brundit. You could get over into Big Brundit if you came around from the Ayers Bay area. Of course, if you've got access type of boat where you can get back in there from some of the other areas, this Little Brundit connects to it, but it's a little bit difficult to get through some of that area. And of course, the back lake that's right here off into Bray, all this here has been opened up pretty well. Redfish, trout, occasional flounder here or there, some black drum even. Not great numbers, but you know it's a lot of fun to get back in there. And one of the things that's really starting to come on now is the topwater game. So if you are a topwater junkie, get those suckers out, put them in your box, tie one on, and go have you some fun, because we've been having some really great opportunities catching trout and redfish on those topwater bait. Primarily been throwing either the Spook Junior or the Mansfield Knocker, either one of those, that smaller version of it. It's a little 4-inch. Great little bait, black and silver or chrome and black, I guess you could say. And then, of course, there's the other one that was thrown that was bone color, a little bit of red mixed in there as well. So those are just the different ones that we've thrown this past week. Now, the other things we've thrown in there is the Double D, because of the extra water that we've had in our system. When those fish are really not wanting to commit to that topwater bait, other than, you know, you're just getting slaps and swirls, and outside of that, when that bite kind of dies away from them being aggressive with it, then we'll put that Double D on and get that thing and bang it down in front of their face a little bit lower, because of the water level has been high enough to where you can work it very well. So again, and still throwing our plastic 16th ounce jig heads, and mainly we're throwing the down south in the original size, and the burner has been good for us. Knock and tail's been good for us. Heavy metal and greenback primarily in those. Now in the down south version of it, we've been, you know, Twisted Tea, Big Papa, Bone, and White Ice have been the 4 flavors that we've thrown. And of course, sprinkled in a watermelon red there, and gold and red glitter from Mirror Looter, the Little Johns and the Little John XLs. Those have all been pretty good. So we're in our transition moon over the next few days, headed toward that full moon. So adjust accordingly. Have that in your box. Just have different sizes. Make sure that you incorporate that major, minor. Lots of bait that's in here in the system still. So redfish are starting to show up more and more as we're starting to trend toward that. You know, they're pushed to the deeper water in October. So lots of these areas down here, you'll find some smaller schools. Sometimes you'll find some bigger schools. But just work the areas, work the back lakes. Take your time, be patient with it, and enjoy your day fishing. Up here off of Jaybird, this whole outer shoreline all the way down to Spalding area. Of course, then you got Sherman's, this big back lake here. Again, what I've said earlier, a lot of extra water in our system. A lot of these back lakes open up, give you more opportunity, give you more surface area to fish. And we've taken advantage of that, working this back shoreline here. Of course, we know we've had a little bit of a northwest wind over the last several days. So it's been a little bit different, so you have to approach it differently and take all that into consideration. And, of course, we've come all the way back down into these back lakes, back in here. They're all interconnected. You can get to them, like I say, with as much water that's pushed into our system, it's really opened up lots of area. And, you know, we pop back out of here in Sherman's, and you're working all that, and like I say, all the way down to Sherman's, to Spalding Bight area. The back lakes that are all back in here, you can get into those, all back in this area. Back out here on the front, the back lakes that are here. This back lake that's over here on this side, like I've said in the passed before, I like to get on the carload side and walk across to that area, especially when there's this much water in there, so it gives you more opportunity. We've been throwing top water in these back lakes, just having fun, finding redfish. And we're finding all different sizes of redfish. There's not just like big numbers back in there, but you're getting opportunities. You're catching them anywhere from 18 up to 25 inches in some of these areas. So like I say, if you're a top water junkie, it's a lot of fun to get back in there and get these opportunities because you can really cover those back lakes well. Again, with the air temps and the water temps have changed a little bit, so that's always something you have to take into consideration. But again, your fishing 101 or your basics of fishing still remain the same, no matter what it is. You structure, bait, majors and minors, and see what kind of current you got, either wind driven or tidal driven, either way. So that's all factored into that, and that's all very important for you to make sure that you pay attention to it. Again, we're in a transition moon headed toward that full moon, so you want to make sure that you have different profiles in your box, from the burner shad all the way up to the XL of the down south. And if you're familiar with the coastal brew baits, they've got some of theirs all the way up to an 8-inch. So something else to look at and see about your box. So, and the coastal brew bait's a very good bait as well, very effective. So anyhow, if you have not thrown some of those, you may want to pick you a bag of those up at your local tackle store, wherever that may be. So as we work these areas like that, we're just taking our time with it. Like I say, we'll have 2 or 3 different people. Somebody's going to throw a top water, somebody's going to have an original size, a 4-inch on, whether it be a knock and tail or a down south. Somebody may have an XL on, 5 to 6 inch bait, and throw that. And we just work different flavors. Water's been pretty clean for the most part. It hadn't been super dirtied up, even with some of the higher gusty winds that we've had in the latter part of the week headed into this past weekend. So something to, like I say, those things all factor into that. So if you're looking at that cleaner water, make sure you have something that's a little bit more translucent, a little softer color bait. And then, of course, your darker water, your darker baits. So just fundamentals of fishing. Always it's nice to retouch into those things and just kind of get a grip on that and see what goes on with that. But again, make sure that you're incorporating that major and minor into your fishing day. Again, structure and bait are the 2 things. Again, redfish are pushing in here, getting ready for their big push out to the Gulf. So get out and have you some fun on some of these back lake areas fishing. With these northwest winds that we have had over the last few days, some of these areas, like back in here, Pete's Bend, a little cut through there, this is all kind of set up pretty good. And again, lots of extra water in your system in here, so this kind of opens up these areas to fish like that. So we've worked some of those. We've worked out on the point out here. It's a little wide open there, but you had some opportunities that were there. Of course, then we get back down in here, back behind Swan. Swan sets up pretty good for a west-northwest wind. So you can get up in here. Now, we fished this flat with all the water that was in here. Get up on this back shoreline, and it's set up pretty good for us. So we could really work this back shoreline, having pretty decent success finding trout and redfish back here on this back shoreline. A little deep to get out in the middle of it with the more water into our system, so it's a little bit more better to fish, anywhere from right on the shoreline to about 30 yards out, maybe 40 yards out, and it gave you plenty of room. You could really work a shoreline pretty well. And then coming back around, and we got back down here on the little bit deeper edge. Now with the water temps dropping, getting down into our low 80s, which is very nice, very comfortable at water. Our bite in the mornings have lasted a little bit longer over these last few days. So we haven't been there for a while with the water temps being in the 90s, low 90s like that. Our trout bite was pretty much done by 9:30, 10 o'clock at the latest. You could have found some a little bit later in the morning if you went to much deeper water, and that was 5 to 6 foot of water. You might locate there, which we had done that. But now with that water temps being in the low 80s, 81 to 84, we've been able to hold that bite a little bit longer up there in that shallow water, so it's been very nice. You just come on back around down in the Port Bay. This big nice flat that's right around this corner right here is set up pretty well for us for that northwest wind. And of course, you get on this west shoreline, and all this sets up pretty well for you as well for that west-northwest wind. So great fishing area. Like I say, we've pulled redfish and trout off of this shoreline here, found an occasional flounder in here as well. That's always a bonus fish for us. So when we look for those and get that kind of stuff, then it's a lot of fun, especially when the conditions dictate that you can fish a different area pretty well. It sets up really well for us. So again, really focused on our majors and minors, and then just kind of paid attention to what we were doing in between those bite frames. Like I said, we'd vary our bait sizes from the burner shad all the way up to the supermodel, the XL of the down south. Again, the flavors that's been the most productive for us. And one other one that is in there in the supermodel for down south was magic grass. It did pretty well as far as that particular flavor go. But your bone, white ice, big poppin', twisted tea, those 4 flavors right there in the down south, all were pretty productive for us. Watermelon red, so again in the mirror lure, Little John did pretty well for us. The Double D, the top water baits, all those baits should be in your box. So it gives you opportunities, different things that you can chunk at these fish and have a productive day. But again, weather pattern, we've got interesting weather coming up this following or this upcoming week. Potential for development down in the Gulf. Not sure yet. We'll see if something transpires with that. Still, I think we're still a little bit away. I may have mentioned something about that last week as well. And of course, we've got rain opportunities all week as well. So make sure you factor in if you're coming down to fish this coming week or you're here, just make sure that you look at what those weather patterns are going to be doing, so it kind of sets up to what estuary that you're going to fish so you can fish it safely.